Good evening. Call to order tonight the meeting of the Poquoson Planning Commission for Monday, October 21st, 2013. And if you would be so kind as to join me in the invocation and pledge of allegiance, we'll stand and say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Now we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the regular session of the meeting that was held on September 16th, 2013. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes as written?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Hey, Vicki.
Certainly. Mr. Godden?
Aye.
Mr. Titlow?
Aye.
Mr. Clifton?
Aye.
Chairwoman Shriver?
Aye.
Madam Chairwoman, the motion carried by a vote of 4-0.
All right, thank you, Vicki. Okay, the first item the second item, I should say, is the audience for visitors. And the audience for visitors is a time that you're welcome to come to the podium, give us your name and your address, and speak on anything that is other than a public hearing item. So if you have something to say on a public hearing item, you will want to wait until we open the public hearing on that matter. Otherwise, if you have something that you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward at this time. We welcome you at the podium. Okay, it appears that there is no one that wishes to come forward at the audience for visitors, so we will close that and move on to our public hearing item, which is a request by Shirley W. Bellamy, property owner, and J. Mark Bellamy, applicant, to establish and operate a storage yard at 426 With Creek Road, tax map parcels number 27-04-00-0002 and 27-04-00-0003, Zone B2 Business. And Debbie, who's making? Kevin, okay. We'll go ahead and have the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. This is a request we received for the Metro Market located at 426 With Creek Road. It's a service station now, gas station and convenience store. It's located at the corner of With Creek Road and Alpha Street. It's actually two parcels. Collectively, they're about 0.88 acres. The property is zoned B2, commercial, and it's immediately adjacent to the R1 residential district towards the east and portions of the southeast. And across the street to its north are other B2 parcels and the Langley Federal Credit Union's the one purple one there, which is general commercial, which is very similar to B2 uses, general retail and service uses. We are here tonight, similar in the past, if a use is not specifically permitted for within that zoning district, an applicant or property owner has the ability to petition the zoning administrator for such use, in which they go through the public hearing process. The owner has operated, it's not necessarily a storage yard, and I'll get into that in a second, more of a salvage yard on the property for years. The city has been in correspondence with the property owner for at least the last decade, probably more than that, to bring them into compliance with the city code. And I say it's not a storage yard for the following reason here. This is our definition of a storage yard. Y'all should be familiar with this because we recently adopted this definition not terribly long ago. But a yard area in which materials, equipment, and/or vehicles used for construction, excavating, freight, or similar activities are stored or kept. Storage yards may operate as primary or accessory use, and in this case, what's being stored on the property doesn't support those activities. It's just kind of a miscellaneous keeping of various items. So that's why it doesn't necessarily meet that definition. It's more of a salvage yard. The applicant's proposing to keep miscellaneous items outdoors on the property. These items do not necessarily support the gasoline and convenience store operation. The items include boats, bird baths, propane tanks, trailers, household appliances, and other household goods. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to allow the keeping of these items. The use has, like I said, been in operation for many years. However, through our discussions, we've not been able to bring the applicant into compliance with removing these items. Recently, the city did take the applicant to court, and the court has ruled that he must remove these items. So this is kind of the last call. If you approve this conditional use permit with the proposed conditions, he would be able to keep those items on the property. Over the years, the city has received several complaints about the operation over the past decade or so, and like I mentioned, the recent court case, that's on hold now, pending the outcome of this process. Here's some pictures of the site. This is from the O.J. Smith Building parking lot across Alpha Street. To your left there would be Rite Aid and Langley Federal Credit Union. To your right, the east would be the single-family dwellings in the area, which I believe there are 5 single-family dwellings within a 300-foot radius. And you can see a portion of the storage yard there. Here's a zoomed-in portion. You can see closer of the items that are kept, which include inoperable vehicles and trailers and just miscellaneous appliances. Here's a shot. This is from the Rite Aid off of With Creek Road, just across With Creek Road there. You can see the items are visible as well. Here's another angle, and there's vegetation in the way, but you can see in the very back there a portion of the storage that's being kept on the property. Here's a zoomed-in picture of that. And here's another picture of various vehicles. All right, so in closing, due to the nature of what's being stored on the property and the location, particularly on With Creek Road, high visibility, and the adjacent to a single-family neighborhood, staff does not recommend the approval of this application. However, if you move to recommend approval to City Council, we highly recommend the following conditions be applied. And bear with me, these can be long. However, this first condition kind of comes from our storage yard ordinance in general. It's a little bit more detailed, but basically it addresses screening. So 1, all area used for storage purposes must be screened from public view on all sides by solid wood, vinyl, masonry, fencing, or other material deemed appropriate by the zoning administrator with a minimum height of no less than 6 feet. The fence shall be screened by a vegetated buffer of no less than 5 feet. This buffer must be vegetated with evergreens or shrubbery suitable for the purpose of screening and pursuant to Article 10, Section 10.8 of the City Zoning Ordinance. Screening shall be perpetually maintained in good condition to assure that its intended purpose is accomplished. 2, all vehicles and equipment kept on the property shall be kept in good repair and working condition. The keeping of abandoned and/or unlicensed vehicles or equipment is prohibited. 3, the outdoor keeping of miscellaneous household items, including appliances, furniture, lawn equipment, landscaping materials, and automobile parts shall not be visible from adjoining properties, basically eliminating the stacking of it to be over that screened area. 4, propane tanks shall be kept securely and in compliance with all local, state, and federal regulations, including building code requirements. 5, removing items from the site for storage at other locations throughout the city shall be prohibited. 6, the operation shall obtain all local, state, and federal permits and/or licenses that are required. 7, upon the discontinuance of such use for a contiguous period of 2 years or more, the conditional use permit shall become null and void. 8, if at any time the operation is in violation of any local, state, or federal regulations, including the conditions set forth in this use permit, the city reserves the right to revoke the permit. And lastly, this use permit may be subject to renewal after a 3-year period. City council may opt to renew this permit indefinitely through inaction, provided that the business is operating in good standing and operating within the all the above outlined conditions. So with that being said, I can take any questions you may have. Yes.
Would you tell me again, would you repeat again what the court, you said this was in court, and depending on what transpires with this, but what was the court's finding again? Would you-
My understanding of this through the building official is that all the storage salvage material must be removed from the property. And the property must be brought into compliance with our city's property maintenance code and the state property maintenance code.
Okay.
Kevin, can you back up to I guess the second slide of conditions?
Second?
There you go. Nope, go to the next one.
The first one?
No, I'm sorry, 5.
Okay.
Number 5, removing items from the site for the storage at other locations throughout the city shall be prohibited. Obviously, we're not trying to prohibit the removal of items. You just simply don't want them elsewhere in the city. I'm not exactly sure how that's enforceable. How would that be related to the land use?
It would be enforceable by the fact that we would then have to pursue property maintenance violations at that property, the other locations. So that's what we're trying to prohibit through this process. Not just allowing him to do this on this property and then shifting to other locations throughout the city.
Plus, if that event should occur, then what's going to happen is Mr. Bellamy, would be found in violation of this use permit, which then makes it revocable. So then he's taken the chance of losing his ability to operate the salvage yard at the Metro Market location.
Okay. Of course, you would have to be able to show that that was an item that was taken from this place and put to the other place, so. I mean, that's my only concern.
I mean,
It's very
that would
difficult to-
potentially take a lot of monitoring from staff.
But to also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to follow up on Chairwoman Shriver's comment about the court. Keep in mind that he may have been asked or ordered to remove the items because he was not found in compliance. If you issue this use permit, then he would then be considered in compliance.
Exactly.
I just wanted to clarify that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. The use has never been a legal operation. This would bring it into a legal operation with controls.
Condition number 6, do you know what other permits or licenses would be required, especially state and federal?
I'm not aware of any. It's just a standard condition that we train, just in case. It's a catch-all.
I didn't know if a salvage yard had particular permitting that was required.
I'm worried about maybe EPA and DEQ with vehicles being stored on the property. That's something I would have to talk with the city engineer, Ellen Roberts, about, but that's certainly one to keep in mind.
And this would be a storage yard, not salvage yard, storage.
Well, it doesn't meet our definition of a storage yard.
He's applied to operate a storage yard, apparently. Yeah, I don't know.
So I guess, Kevin, how do we address the fact that, our definition of a storage yard does not allow most of these items? If that's what,
It would be a different.
technically you're saying we would bring them into compliance, but would we?
The use permit could bring him under that threshold if we wish to. That we advertised as a storage yard because it was the closest definition we had. We don't define salvage yard.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions of Kevin before he?
So it's currently zoned at does not allow a storage or salvage is not part of the current zoning.
Well, in this district, a storage yard is permitted conditionally by right, like we approved not terribly long ago, meeting the predetermined conditions. I mean, if we could, but most of these conditions were actually from the recent storage yard adopted ordinance. So yes, it is allowed to do it if you meet those predetermined conditions.
Do we have any other properties that are under permits for storage yards that?
No. Now, the only other one that has a conditional use permit currently is the Nick Purdue site, 45 With Creek Road. But that's not operating solely under those conditions. Those are operating under separate conditions recommended by you and approved by City Council. Because they couldn't meet all those bullet points, particularly the screening on that property.
The key with this particular one too, and what makes it non-eligible for a storage yard definition, is that under the storage yard allowances, the uses that are, or the activities of the storage yard are supposed to be supportive of the primary use of the property, a business use of the property. And the type of storage that's occurring on this particular piece of property is not supportive of the gas sales and/or automotive repairs that's occurring on the property, and/or the convenience store. So that's a key element which basically does not make it eligible for the storage yard definition, in addition to the inability for the screening.
Right, and Andy, you know, if there are, I noticed, of course, in your conditions, y'all put all vehicles and equipment kept on the property should be kept in good repair and working condition. What's the status of what's there now? Do you know?
Yeah, if Mr. Bellamy would like to speak, we are under the
Not
impression that
public
all of them are are licensed currently and in good working repair. Staff has worked closely with them on that issue.
Okay. We'll have a public hearing, and anybody wants to speak can speak then, but right now, we haven't opened that. Ask anything else? Okay, y'all ready to open the public hearing? Yes, ma'am. Okay, Kevin, if we need you again, we'll ask you questions after the public hearing or whenever. All right, we're going to go ahead then, and we will open the public hearing on this matter. And at this time, if anyone does wish to speak about this item, please come forward and give us your name and address.
My name's Barbara Cawley, and I live on Alpha Street, lived there since 1972. And ever since the Bellamy's have had this property, it's been, things just been stored all behind it. And the Slonina's house backs right up to it. And the only reason they have any privacy from it is because they planted all those trees through there to keep them from having anything. But anyway, she's going to talk about it, Miss Slonina is. But I got signatures from everybody up, as many as I could get, of people that oppose this permit, the storage yard.
Thank you, Barbara.
We're not in favor of it.
I'm Virginia Slonina, and I live at number 1 Alpha Street, and I'm here to speak for myself as well as the other residents of Alpha Street. For more than 30 years, we have had many, many issues with the Bellamy's and their junkyard. The city has taken him to court several times, and the judges tell him what to do, but he never does it. And then the city does never follow up with these appearances. He has a number of junk cars with no current license. You would have to walk the property to see the conditions and the violations to the city code. Poquoson's a great city, and people come here to dine, shop, and enjoy the many activities on the water. Many people along With Creek Road have cleaned up and painted in order to beautify the entrance to our city. When they get to With Creek and Alphas, since when they hit there, it's an eyesore. many people wanted us to go 10 on your side to see what they could do. However, we would really rather keep our dirty laundry in the city. Therefore, we, the residents of Alpha Street, are here to go on record to register our votes no to Bellamy's request for a storage yard. He has had a junkyard at this address for many years, and now he wants a permit to continue his junkyard. We say no.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill. All right, thank you, dear.
Madam Chairman and the Planning Commission, thank you for having us. I'm Ben Wilson. I live at 13 Alpha Street, been there 52 years. Was born and raised in Poquoson 77 plus years ago. My dad built and operated a service station on Lodge Road in Poquoson Avenue for a number of years. And I recall the discussions we had prior to the construction of this building within a neighborhood that was residential. We had no codes. We were not answerable to anyone at that time except a respect and regard for our neighbors. This was the guidelines that we used to construct this building. Codes are good, but let's live beyond the codes to respect and regard other people's properties. And that's the way we did it, and we maintained it that way for years. We never had a complaint for years about that building in that residential area. And yet, as we're addressing this issue has been just wrought with tremendous numbers of complaints, some outwardly in public and others within ourselves. And yet, it just doesn't seem like to me that there's a respect and regard for not only the local neighborhood, but also our community. As some of you know, I walk every morning. I walk down Alphas, down With Creek, down to City Hall, and just recently we had a seafood festival. And we saw a lot of activity going on to make our community really look nice for this festival. It's very important. I really appreciate all the efforts that have been going forward to making our community so nice and appealing to people that would come in here. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people came in here this past gone weekend. And this area that we're talking about here is an epic center of Poquoson. We're getting ready to build some more businesses and townhouses right behind Langley Federal Credit Union. That's in the process. That's in the pipeline. And it would do us well to address these issues that we're before us now, that will make this area here, which is visited by people from all over this peninsula, not just our local people, but people from NASA come in for lunch. This place has high exposure, and we need to regard that when we consider such as what we're considering tonight. The past history of this property has not been one that has been out of respect and regard for the neighborhood nor the community. It has been one that I have reluctantly, I've heard, the background, the feed, and I just stayed out of the fray. I just stayed back away from it, but I don't feel like I can do that now. I feel like it's just like going to the dentist and saying, you got a decayed place on that tooth, and if you don't work on it, you're going to lose that tooth. And the thing is, if you ignore this, where does it go? If you're expecting the property owner to maintain and comply to this, the history says to the contrary. The history of this property owner says to the contrary. And that is a deep concern of mine. Okay, we agree on this. We put this forward. And then we expect compliance, which a history of this has not come forward. I hate, and I regret saying that. Mark Bellamy is I trust a good friend of mine. And, but the history of this property shows lack of regard and respect for us as neighbors and also as this community. So I respectfully submit my comments to you and say I just trust that he may reconsider and say, I want to pull back from this and reconsider and maybe go in a direction that would be more wholesome to the community and to our neighborhood. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Picture of our property. This is when gas was $1.02 a gallon. And it clearly shows Mark Bellamy from 426 With Creek. I'm one of the property operators. And it shows that I've been having a few things outside. And some of it got out of hand over the last few years. And whenever the city has asked me, my vehicles have always been brought into compliance. They've always had tags on them. Some of the tags have gotten stolen and I've replaced them. All the trailers have permanent tags. All the vehicles have current either inspection or tags on them. So there's no illegal activity on the vehicles. The vehicles are personal vehicles that I use, some for myself and some in support of the business. That's what they seem to be wanting me to remove. We have businesses all over town, and that's is our high ground out there. And recently, the city has asked me to clean up, and I've been cleaning up. Each time I clean up more and more, and I don't get very many air conditioners to recycle anymore to send kids to camp, which is what I do with a lot of the money. I send Boy Scouts to Philmont, summer camp, whatever, I help underprivileged people with some of the stuff that I cut up and take to the scrapyard that other people are just gonna toss. Well, since I've been raising my 2 grandchildren that my son is not able to raise, my time has gotten restrictive and it got a little out of hand, but I've spent every minute that I could, and you can see by that picture, the second picture he has on there, if you took a picture a year and a half ago, and you took a picture a year ago and 6 months ago, and that current picture that he took this morning when he walked by, you'll see that I've done quite a bit, and my intent is not, as this says, to establish and operate a storage yard. I simply need a place to keep the vehicles and trailers that are legal, and the rest of the stuff I've been working on getting rid of. I went with this gentleman, I went and sat down with him, and he instructed me on how to write this up so that I could continue with what I've been doing. I talked to the mayor, he said the same thing. Then they wanted me to apply for a conditional use permit, and I talked to Gordon Helsel, and he told me it was a trap. I would lose my grandfathering, that I've been there almost 40 years. We should have operated, I think we operated and started operation before the city became a city while it was a town. And it hasn't been my intention, and any of these people, I love all these people in the room that came up. They've been my customers for years. I've helped Miss Lonina's husband many times. We borrowed and traded things. He liked to collect things, and I just had a little bit bigger collection. And but my intent is not to alter But I did put on my application to him that I would like to do a little bit of recycling, because I bring the scouts up there and I teach them how to disassemble air conditioners. That might not be the right place to do it. I do have some fencing in place up there, and I've been waiting for them to tell me what I needed to do with it. I fenced a little area that the city building inspectors had been inspecting since Mr. Moore was inspector. I have some items inside that cinder block fence that have been passed as fine. I've got a letter in here stating that all my vehicles and trailers are in compliance, and I've checked with the DMV, and they said there aren't any rules that they know of in the state about where you can store legal, titled, tagged vehicles that you personally own. And I'm a little curious. I've always gotten into compliance every time the city's asked me, and then this last time, they came up with, you can't have any outside storage. They blindsided me with that. And any of these neighbors that has ever asked me to do anything, you can ask this man right here, Scoutmaster, Assistant Scoutmasters. I'm always helping everybody, usually at my own expense. Now, I don't have a big income up there at the gas station. Normally, we operate at a loss, but we're trying to stay there. I like helping people in the community, and I'm not after a salvage yard and a storage yard. I'm after to become in compliance with to have some outside storage, which seems to be the issue here. The vehicles have always been passed by city, and I got a letter in here that says the vehicles are fine, and he even said they're fine, but then in one of his sentences, he said he's been operating it illegally. Not to my knowledge, I was not operating illegally. The city has never come up to me and said, you can't have any outside storage, you got to move it all. They've come up there with weeds, debris, and inoperable vehicles, and I've complied every time. And when the building department asked me to remove some of the wood that I'd gotten and some of the other things, I complied. And I've been working my way back toward the back building that I have on the lot ever since. It's been over a year. It's causing stress in my life. I mean, I'm trying to do what I do at home and try to do what I do at work and with Scouts and Coast Guard Auxiliary. And I volunteer too much. It hurts financially, but my intent is to just have some outside storage. And I do have high ground there that doesn't flood, so I don't have to worry about running my vehicle somewhere and my trailers every time it floods. I don't have that many high areas that we own, as a lot of other people don't own. So I'm not sure exactly. I know why I'm here, because I was told I need to come, or they were going to charge me $25,000 for being out of compliance, which I certainly can't afford. So I agreed to apply for a conditional use permit for some outside storage and some recycling, and I filled it in on his application. He has a copy of it because I don't have a copy of it. So it makes me look to be the bad guy, and I realize the city is trying to attract businesses down here. I'd love to see more businesses down here because more businesses will buy gasoline. That might allow me to stay there a while longer, but we're doing the best we can, and I'm not out for a salvage yard, I'm not out for a storage yard, I'm out for having some outside storage, which, unbeknownst to me, is not allowed in a B2 zone, and they told me that they didn't understand at City Hall any of the grandfathering that I might be granted. I had stuff and was adding stuff when too many people were giving me stuff, and nobody ever said anything, came to me and said, you can't be doing this. So I was a little bit blindsided, and I've been cleaning up as I've had time with my other activities and removing the other items that sit outside the shed and around back. But you got to realize some of those items do support my business. I have quite a few customers and quite a few friends that are always needing something. Somebody needs a spare tire for a car to pass inspection. I have tires on rims ready to go. There's never any charge. I bring them back, or I give them to them. There's always people bringing me stuff, says, donate this to the Scouts. Put it behind the fence, I'll load it on the trailer, cut it up when I can. And I have a good client base, customers that are always needing something, as I said, and I give of it freely. And that has helped my business with some of the people that come up there. Some of the people don't see this in the background. And so however you decide to send this to council, my intent is for a small amount of storage, and I'm working on whittling that down of the stuff that is what she has said and that he has said that are illegal, which was not known to me. I've known that I've been able to have my vehicles ever since we got a old oil truck from Mr. Moore, and we sold fuel oil in a 5-gallon bucket out of the back of the truck till the truck was empty. We had tags on the truck. We've been in compliance as far as I knew, and I will continue cleaning up of the things that they say that I can't have, because that's what I do when the city asks me to do something. You can ask Gordon Helsel, you can ask him all the way back to Mayor Bunning and on back to General Dickerson. He told us to do it up there, what we needed to do to stay in business, when him and my dad used to talk. So we've had what I thought was a good rapport with the city. I don't wish to fight City Hall. I wish to be kind of left alone so I can help people, my customers, and stay there and support my family. So however you decide to send this to council, I would like you to send them something so that I don't have to move everything to North Carolina or wherever. My intent is to move my bucket truck to North Carolina when I can to work on our farm down there, but we have a tree farm out here on Black Walnut Ridge, which we have timber on, and I have some equipment up there to that effect, stump grinders. I had a chipper I took to the marina to repair that I picked up. So most of the stuff that I have is in support of businesses in Poquoson, and I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bell. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak? Come back up, so we can hear you. Well, come back up and give us your name again.
Oh, Barbara Cawley,
Okay,
and I live at 10 Alpha Street.
all right.
But from my experience with him, he has had nothing but junk on that property. He says all these cars that are lined up in the front and over to the other side, all licensed and ready to work. I think the city needs to check those cars and those things that are lined up on the property, because I don't think they're working vehicles. They might be, but I don't think they are. When he's been told to move things from that property, he would move things out and satisfy the city for a little bit, and then wherever he brings it back from, he brings it all back, and it all piles back in there again. And I think I feel like he's straightened it up right now because he was going to apply for this permit. That's the only reason he did that, in my feelings. But anyway, I hope y'all think about this good and hard, because after all these years, it needs to be cleaned up, and they need to get it all off the property. And this grandfather's clause thing, there was an Esso station there when I first moved there. They didn't have that green area, anything in it. And I thought it was the green area between the business and the residential thing. I thought that was because most of the time businesses have to have a little space between property. And I always thought that's what it was for, but I don't know. So anyway, I hope y'all really
Thank you.
consider this.
Thank you. All right, come back up and give us your name, so Vicki will have it.
Mark Bellamy, I didn't give you this piece of paper earlier. I went around and I wrote the license plates and the little P in the corners for permanent tags, and the other ones have inspection, and then I listed all my current vehicles. I currently drive 5 or 6 different vehicles because I need this for one, that for the other. And I do drive them up there and back and forth, and a lot of times they're going to the scrapyard. But I'll give you this piece of paper. And the city charges me taxes on these every year for the city stickers that you don't have to have anymore. And so they make money off me every year. But that's a list of the vehicles. One page has most of what's at Metro and some of the page. The other has some of my other stuff, my boats and my current cars and my wife's car. But I drive various vehicles. That's why I carry a big ring of keys, which I didn't bring in tonight. But that will show you that all those trailers are in compliance and have been in compliance according to the city code, which states if it has neither current tags nor current inspection, it shall be deemed to be inoperable.
You
one
currently
of
have
these-
all of these vehicles, they on that piece of property?
I have the trailers on this side, not all of them. I have trailers up there, and my vehicles that I drive every day also listed. On the other side, I have some of the other trailers that are in and out of there because I have on the tax thing that I pay on every year. I have quite a number of vehicles.
You have a number of things there.
Yes, ma'am.
Mark, all of these are owned by you,
All those are owned personally by me.
and they have valid licenses and valid inspection
They
stickers.
are current.
Okay.
I have stated, and I have a letter in my file I didn't show you, that the bill.
I trust your word.
All right, anyone else? Come up to the podium, Mr. Wilson, because if you don't, they can't hear you at home.
Do you have a tractor to pull that trailer? Do you have a tractor, a licensed tractor to pull the trailer? That huge, have you got an 18-wheel?
I had one in the city.
You had one, okay. I rest my case on that. That's a permanent piece of junk.
It has a permanent tag.
I know it, okay, but it's permanent there, you cannot move it. You don't have any way of moving it now.
I see Thompson as a.
Okay.
And I have several friends. That's how it happened.
I appreciate your desire to help people. We don't feel helped on Alpha Street. I've been in scouting. I was a scoutmaster for years, quite familiar with leading young people by example. Example is tremendous. They speak louder than a lot of actions. And so it's very important that compliance is one thing. And that's just a skeleton. The rest of it, out of respect and regard for others, is so important. I can come into compliance and still stretch it here and there and before, just to meet and satisfy my own personal needs. But that doesn't necessarily be considerate of others. And it's so important that that is considered in this discussion, that others have to be considered in this. We have property, we are property owners here. We pay taxes. We, on Alpha Street and this whole area, deserves better than having a junkyard in our side yard. We deserve better than that. And so I just, again, appeal to you in this regard that this has been an ongoing thing for years. And I don't know how many more, 10, 12, 15, 20 more years before this is cleared off, the way this gentleman is moving it. And my wife and I talked about this yesterday morning at breakfast. I said, Mark is doing better. It is moving back from the main road, main street. But it's not gone. It needs to be gone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
One minute again. When he has stored things there, oftentimes up close to he doesn't have it right now, but up close to the street and right there by my property, he has front-end loaders and big, I don't know what all they are, but they're big equipment, and he's had them there. And if you give him a permit to have a storage yard, they will all come back. And I don't think it's fair because of these big equipments, and he had a big boat there until just recently, and it was hard for me to get out of my driveway because I couldn't see the traffic. However, like he said, he has cleaned it up there right at the street where people can see it. But then you go back and look in through his yard or walk the yard and see what all he's got back there, and it's junk.
Okay. I think probably we're done with the public hearing. I think everybody is ready to close, and at this time, we'll go ahead and close it, and we'll take it under consideration. Okay. Well, I imagine there's going to be some comments as to what your thoughts are.
I feel like I have to comment. I own property on Alpha Street. And I thought when I walked in tonight and I saw these people here, I thought, since I've owned property there, which I think it's 1991 or 92, I have noticed, and I've had people visit our house who have noticed the cars and things sitting there. But what actually got me tonight was I thought, if these folks are okay with this, then I'm okay with it, simply because I trust what these people have to say. But my feeling is I don't particularly like it the way it looks, but I feel like these people have been here years. I trust them. They're good people. And if they haven't been able to work something out, I guess I feel as though I'm not in favor of the permit.
Gus, you have any
Well-
thoughts on the map?
Yes, ma'am. I just think, I'm looking at this picture, y'all can't see what I'm looking at, although I'm sure you're very familiar with it. If he cleans all of this up, you're still gonna be looking at the back of a convenience store. And it just seems to me, wouldn't it be more physically attractive if there were landscaping and a 6-foot privacy fence and the stuff was low enough that you couldn't see it? I mean, you do still have a buffer if it were all green, but at the end of the day, you're still looking at parking lot and cars and propane tank and this.
What about the propane tank and the cars, if they are nice, usable cars? Now, he says that they are good cars,
Oh,
but they don't move.
Yes, ma'am, I was just talking about the cars that are actually, well, I mean, customers.
That's not the picture of what's there now.
Yes, ma'am, I don't know how old this picture is. I mean, it's just, I don't live on Alpha, so I was just curious what y'all would rather look at. Either if it's cleaned up, you have a buffer zone, and then the back of a convenience store. Yes, ma'am.
How far back would you clean it off?
Well, there would be a 5-foot vegetated buffer on the outside of the fence, and then there would be a 6-foot privacy fence. That's correct, Kevin?
Yeah, a minimum of 6-foot privacy fence. They could go higher.
Right. So from wherever the property line is in about 5.5 feet.
Well, it would be one thing if he's storing things that have to do with his business, but this stuff doesn't have nothing to do with his business. There's never been a service station that I can remember other than it was a NASA. It's been a convenience store, a gas station, and all the stuff that's surrounding there is just junk.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not anything that is pertaining to that business.
Have you been down there and looked over the property, walked the property?
No, ma'am. I've shopped there, but I've never, besides the pictures that were provided by staff, I have not.
I think it'd be something that all of your all's would benefit if you would go down there and walk the property.
We did operate vehicle repair when we first opened, and we still have the lift on the floor inside and the lift in the back room. And we changed it around to a convenience store for now, but I've never stopped working on vehicles inside or outside, whether it be for customers. And this transmission in about an hour.
Okay.
Back on the road, so.
Mark, excuse me just a minute, but when y'all talk from the audience at home, they cannot hear what you're saying. So I don't like to interrupt you, I'm sorry. But if you have something to say, we don't mind if, I wouldn't mind if you came back up, even though we've closed the public hearing, but they can't hear you. So, it's kind of, we like for you to say it up here so the audience at home will know what you're saying. Barbara and Ms. Lonina, same for y'all. And what I would say is if somebody does have a question where they do want to ask them again, if you want to ask Mark or one of these ladies a question, we will have them come up to the podium.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so they can hear at home. Rich?
Kevin, these vehicles being properly licensed and having inspection, owned by Mr. Bellamy, is there anything that prevents him from parking these vehicles there? It's his property.
Our code stipulates that as long as the vehicle is in good working condition and it's legally tagged, they can keep it on the property.
So
we don't control where they can keep those now.
So assuming that, in fact, they are all tagged properly and owned by him, these vehicles are not in question under this ordinance right now, or this special general use permit. So the vehicles are out of play. They're his vehicles. It's up to him to keep them licensed. If they're not licensed, they can be towed off. So forget about the vehicles.
What about the 18-wheeler?
That's true.
Same thing, it's a trailer. As long as it's licensed, it can be moved by any rig at any time. He doesn't have to own the rig to move it. And I'm not trying to defend anything that Mark's done there or anything, but the fact is, we're not an enforcement agency. We don't decide what the law allows. So the vehicles are not something we're questioning. As far as the other items,
I'll just chime in real quick. Debbie and I were thinking out loud here. When it comes to the storage of vehicles, throughout the city, you're required to, keep off-street parking, areas that are suitable for the keeping of vehicles. From a use standpoint, you get into that storage yard area when you start keeping cars as storage items. We would have to talk to Randy, who's the zoning administrator, but I'm of the opinion that if you're keeping an exorbitant amount of vehicles, as is clearly the case here, whether those are trailers or cars, not for everyday use, you can be keeping them tagged, but you're still storing them on a property. So I think there's a fine line there. But I would be inclined to say from a use standpoint, it would still be in conflict with what's permitted in the zoning district.
okay. The other items is a matter of putting the buffer in, is what your condition is. And is there anything that says what size? He doesn't have to go and use that whole property. If he wanted to go and fence out half of it, as long as everything's inside the fence, that meets the condition.
And my interpretation, or over the years, it's been kind of behind the building line, that back rear building line, and to the residential property to its east.
Do you know if the shed that's up there, if it meets setback, or is it a grandfathered structure?
It appears to be grandfathered. But if I'm not mistaken, let me look at that aerial quickly. That appears to meet our setback requirement, which on a structure of that nature would be 13 feet at a minimum. And it appears to meet that on the aerial. I'd like to measure it, but.
You have much better eyes than I do.
Contacts.
Well, at first, my thought on this when I read it was that I thought this was possibly a good means for the city to control the issue that has come about and has been an issue for a number of years. My first thought was that it would possibly give a little more ability to the city to control an unpleasant situation, which it has been an unpleasant situation for the people who have lived on Alpha Street. And I can tell you, I remember this being a problem for a long time. And I'm not saying that the property owner, Mr. Bellamy, is not a good person. I think what has happened, and it's sort of, he's touched on it himself, what has happened is that he has gotten a situation there that has gotten out of control. And it can happen. Then I got to thinking about, after hearing some of these people tonight, I wondered if we are not giving, I think Mr. Bellamy has a problem controlling this. I think he genuinely has a problem. He probably doesn't like to say no to taking things, to help Boy Scouts and whatever, and that's, you know. But I don't want to give license to the problem that he has. I just don't know how well we can enforce. I'm hesitant. Staff is hesitant, and I'm a little hesitant now in thinking about it. And what Mr. Wilson said, really, he made a statement, a lack of regard and respect for neighbors and community. The houses are very, very close there. And I have to think, you know, if it were me, of course, I think what Gus was trying to touch on, the same thing I had thought, if it is a nice fence there, and if it's, you know, buffered, and I kind of feel like, I may be wrong, and Mark, please don't hold me if I'm wrong, but I do think probably you're cleaning up a little bit there because your feet a little bit to the fire. Right now, the spotlight's on this, and you're trying to clean it up, but I don't know if you can maintain that. I feel like, in a way, if we do this, we are kind of giving license here to the okay to, you know, and storage yard to me is something different. When I made the comment about storage yard and salvage yard, storage yard to me, and I may be wrong, but it kind of lends itself to a business, operating a business, and there are things that are pertinent to that business being stored on the property, things that are essential to that business. Salvage yard is junk. It's a junk yard. And that's why I asked the question between the two, storage and salvage. What were we doing here? I'm hesitant on this, and when I came in here tonight, I was thinking that this may be a benefit to the neighbors, this ordinance. And that was my intent. I want to be of benefit to Mark, to operate his business within reason, but yet people who have lived on that street for a long time, I don't want to work a hardship on them. And this has been an ongoing thing. I mean, it's not like this has been, you know, just come about in the last few years. I think Mark's good-hearted. I don't have a question of that. And all these people here tonight have even commented they like Mark. But I think it gets out of control. And we've got to think about that. Are we aiding and abetting here, or are we helping the situation?
Wouldn't you like to have some screening up? And that way, when it gets out of control, at least has something to hide it.
That was my original
Because the problem is, you know, we come in here and we say, no, you're not gonna do this, and he's gonna finally get everything moved out of there for how long? Until it comes back, and you're looking at it again. At least under this ordinance, we can force him to put up some fence and some buffer and give you some kind of screening. I mean, it's a shame that it would come down to us telling them have to do that. Mark, you need to do that on your own. You just need to put some fencing up there, take care of your neighbors.
But we've got a difference of opinion here now. But the thing is that what he has been doing has been illegal with what he's been doing. And the court apparently is finding with our current status, it's not a legal activity.
Kevin, if this were to go to council and passes council, how long does he have to comply?
With this, that there are no dates on the conditions, so it would be almost immediately.
Well,
For lack of a better, I'm sure at the council level or tonight here, we can discuss a timeline to bring the buffer.
obviously a fence can't be put in overnight, so there has to be at least a reasonable time frame to respond if this were to go.
Well, if we don't pass on or recommend this, because what we're doing is only recommending, the council will have the final say. But if we don't do it, the alternative is that he is going to have to keep the area completely clean. It's going to have to be cleaned out.
Yes, and that is what my understanding through the building official has been representing the city in court. He would have to remove all those miscellaneous items per that
It's
ruling.
going to have to be removed. The area that it's in, I mean, that's a critical point to this issue. If you were in another area of the city that was more isolated, I think, from houses, is so close to houses.
It's also on our main entry.
The area is one of the things that I've got to consider personally on this matter. We've had other situations where it was, in fact, at Purdue, but that is not in relationship. They are close proximity to housing. It's a different situation. This is when you wish you could hit something here that would accommodate both, but yet I'm thinking past history. I've got to be honest. Past history here does weigh into it, I think. But the area of where this is, to me, is very critical. I mean, I think about even with a fence, I mean, who's to say what could go in there? And I'm thinking, I can think of a lot of things that could go in there behind a fence that might breed other problems later on, and as far as other things that could be in there and spread out to the neighbors. If you get I don't know, just my thoughts on it, that's my opinion. I think the area is the point that really, to me, makes it less palatable, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Kevin, what happens if we take no action?
The court, the application would, this is his process for bringing it into some sort of controlled compliance. If it is not granted, the court ruling would ultimately win out and the items would have to be removed because it's still not in compliance with any city code or zoning ordinance.
Well, I was talking specifically if we take no action, does it
If
still go
you-
to council?
It would still go to council with, I guess, no recommendation either way.
Well, the fact that this has been going on for a long time and it's not in compliance, it's gone on this long, a long time, that's somewhat disturbing to me.
Take that out separately if this was a new owner coming in for this request. Think about it that way. I'm pretty sure none of us would approve it.
I don't think I would, not in the area it is, not where it is. No, I wouldn't. All right, do y'all want to take comments from Mr. Bellamy? Do you have any questions? Because actually, technically, we've closed the public hearing, so
Mr. Bellamy.
are y'all okay with it? I mean, I'm gonna
That's fine.
You're
Actually,
okay?
I have a question for Mr. Bellamy.
go right ahead, that'll work then.
If this conditional use permit got passed, how quickly could you have a fence up? How quickly could you erect a fence?
The fence is sitting there against the cinder blocks, waiting for them. The loose fencing is there, the little bit that I put. Well, the fence, I set it at 6-foot height, and I put a board at the bottom. The fencing that I had there was for the little area that they'd been giving me to use. But as I said before, my intent is not to store stuff anymore there. I've been getting rid of the stuff that is on the ground that is not in compliance. And y'all, I keep getting a wishy-washy. Are my trailers and things legal to keep there, or are they not? I mean, I'm getting rid of the few air conditioners and heat exchangers that I have left. Some came out of the building when I replaced the stuff, and I have a little, but I've gotten rid of most everything, and I'm still getting rid of the stuff that y'all are, that they ask me to come in compliance, but they've never told me about that stuff being out of compliance. There's no paperwork that I've seen that the city has, and they've always said, okay, your vehicles are fine, we've checked them, and they've been letting me keep the vehicles there for years and years and years, and I change vehicles and trailers, and I use them for all kinds of different things. And so I'm a little curious. I'm getting rid of the stuff that's on the ground, which is the outside storage stuff, as I go. And I've been getting rid of more. I've been waiting to see what your rules for me would be, because I've always followed your rules when you've told me to do something. You can ask Jim Beach. Whenever they've asked me to do something, I've done it. And then they've asked me to do more, I did more. So I'm still working on it. My question is, I guess I don't know what the question is. The vehicles, are they fine? The storage stuff I'm getting rid of, but I don't know where.
Mark, if your intent is to get rid of all of the storage items instead of, other
It's
than
the items
vehicles,
that are outside the trailers and on the ground and outside the shed and outside the business that are not related to the business. I do have propane tanks out there that are related to the business. And I do have oil in some of my 275 drums that are behind the fence that I service my vehicles with. I do have commercial equipment. I don't normally bring it up there. I normally have my backhoes at the marina, or I take them to the Ridge property. But we do have some construction equipment, but it doesn't stay there that long. And a lot of it runs on diesel fuel, off-road diesel fuel, and that's the only thing I have extra. But as a gas station, I sell that, so I'm allowed to have that. But I hear y'all discussing it's been going on a long, long time. But what part of it's been illegal for that long time? I mean, they've never actually come out until recently, and I was already cleaning up before they sent it to Wayne Moore, and before Wayne Moore sent me a fine pending of $25,000. I had already done most of the cleanup and had asked them, and she even asked me, would you be willing to put up a fence at one of the meetings? I said, yes. A white fence? I said, no, I have some fencing that I've been working on. And your photo doesn't show where I had 2 oil drums sitting there next to as part of my fence. I removed those, and I extended the fence over to the kerosene pump, which hides that 1 second shot that you took. Doesn't hide it, it screens it from view of the stuff behind there. I extended the fence about 10 foot the other day with materials that I had on the property for that purpose. And that is a 6 or 7 foot fence there.
Well, in response to your question about what is legal and what is not, I'm not an attorney.
Oh, I know that.
But I do rely I will rely on Mr. Moore's opinions very highly. I know him as our city attorney, and I have great confidence in his ability to represent the city. And I feel that he would not in any way have brought any type of frivolous charges against you. I feel that he had some reason, I don't know, I haven't spoken with him, so I don't know, but I would feel he would have some justification. He's been an attorney for a number of years and certainly wouldn't have done anything unless he felt that it was justification for it. And I won't get into any further than that, but the city, you know, having a situation that they felt warranted some action, I feel that it probably, you know, had some justification. We are not involved in that. Our matter is not that. I am, you know, concerned about some other things here.
I just want to clarify that,
Yeah,
as far as I knew, I was operating legally.
well, apparently.
They'd never come to me with that I can remember, of outside storage saying, you can't have anything up there. They've always said, okay, your vehicles are fine. And like I said, what I've done speaks for what I've been doing, and I've been doing it on my own time.
Well,
I haven't
I
stopped.
don't know, but it's some areas there that probably, you know, I don't know about as far as how many times he's been approached. But to come to the point of court, sometimes it does imply that there was.
They took me to court one time for some auto parts that I didn't realize I wasn't allowed to have up there, and they did take me to court, and the judge found me guilty of that, and I asked the city manager, what would you like me to do? He said, move all that stuff, and so I did. They never said anything about the outside storage we're talking about now. That was auto parts, and I hadn't read that part of the code. But I did take care of that. I don't have auto parts outside up there anywhere.
Yeah.
All the vehicles are in complete condition.
Well,
So, I mean,
you know, I can't address some of the issues that you're bringing up because I don't have privy information to it.
Yes, ma'am.
But the things that I'm concerned with here is the fact that I know there is some past history here of a problem with the property. The fact that the city took it to court, it gives me the fact that I think there probably is more of a problem there.
Well,
And the fact that, you know, where this property is, Mr. Bellamy, I feel like it is very close to neighbors there, and
I have two
can't-
neighbors,
I
and the rest of
can't
the
help-
neighbors are at quite a distance, and
Well, I can't help but think that there's some problem here. And like I say, I think you're well-meaning. I don't have any problem with that. I think you are well-meaning, but it's like a lot of people, things sometimes get out of hand, and you're pressed to clean things up, and you do it, but then when you're
there was
not.
never any legal when I started cleaning that up. They
Well,
were,
when you're not under scrutiny, I think it tends to kind of build up again.
It hasn't.
And that's my situation here tonight, and I don't know about anybody else, but I'm thinking that we don't want to enable you, is what I'm thinking. I don't want to enable you to create an even greater situation here.
I don't want you to either.
No, I
I'm
don't
just
want
asking
to, and I'm
for
not going to.
a little bit of the stuff that's outside and a little bit of recycling. Now, you can restrict that down to a 10-foot by 10-foot square or whatever you like to do, but
Well,
that's fine.
all right, I think probably we are prepared to take, are we prepared to take an action on this tonight? I am prepared to take an action on it. And I don't know if you want to make a motion to accept this as it's written, or if you, what are your thoughts?
My feelings are that I would only be in favor of approving it if he would meet with the folks on the signatures, and everybody, these folks they could all agree with each other. Otherwise, I would have a hard time.
I don't think that's going to
I'm
Right,
sorry.
and I understand that. I'm just saying that basically the point I'm trying to make is that the signatures and the people that spoke here tonight, I feel like I have to respect their views, and
I certainly
that's
do.
how I feel. So.
Yeah, I think if I lived on Alphys, I would personally rather look at a screened area, but I don't live on Alphys, and they said that they don't want that, and I have to respect their wishes as people that are actually in the situation.
And I'm just going to take it, Mark, stand aside. I wouldn't allow this under a new request. I wouldn't allow it to be developed that way. I make a motion we not recommend this to council.
Second it.
Okay, Vicki?
Okay, so that's a recommendation of denial, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Clifton?
Aye.
Mr. Titlow?
Aye.
Mr. Godden?
Aye.
Chairwoman Shriver?
Aye.
Madam Chairwoman, the motion carried by a vote of 4-0.
Now, please understand that we are only a recommending group. We have recommended denial. This will go to council, is it
28.
the 28th? I would say that, they may have different thoughts entirely than we do, but we have recommended denial. All right.
Originals back. if you want.
Okay, we'll move on then to the next item. Let's see, I think, Debbie, did you have some,
Yes, ma'am. Under the communications portion of my staff, I was going to talk to
the new business review?
Planning Commission.
Okay, yeah.
So,
You want to wait a minute?
oh, actually, she does have a new business, doesn't she?
So new business, review of zoning ordinance variance request.
Oh, that's it? Okay, yeah, I was gonna do it under. We always have that.
I know, I was very confused by that. They should. McDonald's or the Rite Aid or whatever. If I live next to any commercial property, trees for years. Look at that commercial, lose for everybody. I understand that, but that's not the point.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Licensed, it's licensed.
Don't you jump at me when I talk to you.
My hands are cold. I'm ready for the funeral. Okay, so are we ready? Debbie, you
Yes,
wanna
ma'am.
proceed?
And these are fun and exciting. Ordinance changes.
Fun and exciting, okay. I'm looking forward to that.
Not being exactly truthful, but that's
That's hurtful, but
I'm sure.
All right, Debbie, go ahead. We're ready.
What I would like to do is I'd like to advise everyone that City Council,
Could I have quiet, because the meeting is still going on. Folks, if you have something to confer about, take it to the hallway. We're still meeting. All right, Debbie, go ahead.
City Council received the proposed PUD ordinance that was designed as a mixed-use overlay district for the Big Woods that you guys worked on diligently for 6 consecutive months. They held a public hearing at their last meeting after having a work session where staff gave a detailed presentation on the contents of the ordinance and the reasoning for your decisions and making certain recommendations on certain elements of the ordinance. And it was very well received, and they actually approved it on first reading, and it is scheduled to be presented to them on second reading at Monday night's meeting. So we're expecting to have a new zoning district that will hopefully help spark some commercial and residential development in the Big Woods here in the next couple of days. With that said, I do want the Planning Commission to be aware that we may be receiving an application to activate that overlay district. It's for property that is located on the south side of Victory Boulevard. It includes a majority of the land here on the south side of Victory Boulevard in the Big Woods. But in addition to that, and the reason why I'm advising you of this at this point, A formal application has not yet been received. However, we have discussed the idea of extending the boundaries of where the overlay district was initially recommended to be placed per the comprehensive plan, which was basically contained to the Big Woods area. However, there are several adjacent parcels on the south side of Oxford Run, immediately adjacent to the Big Woods, that is being proposed as for residential purposes, but would be a part of a development concept which would include the commercial component and would include the areas in the Big Woods that I just mentioned to you. So with that said, the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is, number one, this is a fairly large application. It would be presented to you, of course, as a rezoning application, but there is a proposal to extend the boundaries of what you had originally approved or thought would be just incorporating the Big Woods. Keep in mind, we talked about this when we were discussing this new zoning district in our several work sessions. And in the actual ordinance, there's some language that basically allows for an expansion of the designated area, provided that it's a logical expansion. So when you guys receive this rezoning application, you're going to need to look at it to see if you think that this is a logical expansion and if the proposed use of that expanded area is compatible with the surrounding area. So it's going to be a very interesting application. I'm looking forward to actually presenting this application to you, or any other application that comes for activating this mixed-use concept. But with that said, does anybody have any comments or questions?
Sounds interesting.
Just kind of hit you cold?
Sounds like it could be interesting.
Okay, and then the third thing, I had three things I wanted to talk to you tonight about. And the third thing, if you recall, when we were looking at developing this mixed-use concept for the Big Woods, we also talked about there were certain components within that ordinance which may be interesting if we evaluated or analyzed the fact of maybe including them in our open space ordinance that we currently have on file. Keep in mind that I guess it was around 2001, we created an open space overlay district ordinance that would pertain solely to the single-family residential areas of the city. And there were several unique characteristics of that ordinance at the time that it was created. One, it allowed clustering of development, but in exchange for that, 50% of the subdivision tract had to be reserved for open space. In addition, another unique character of that particular overlay district was the fact that you could use up to 20% of non-tidal wetlands in calculating your lot yield. However, your lot yield falls back to the underlying zoning district in which the property is currently zoned, which typically in the single-family areas, what our comprehensive plan and what the zoning ordinance calls for is 2 units per acre. With that said, the reason why I'm mentioning this to you this evening, and I've provided, we don't have a formal slideshow this evening, but I did prepare 2 slides which outline these unique characters of this district. And what staff would like to do, if the Planning Commission feels that they're up to it at this point, is to take a look at these unique characters, compare it to maybe some of the elements of our new PUD ordinance to see if this existing open space ordinance could be updated to more closely match some of the characteristics of the PUD ordinance. What we're thinking is we would want to take a look at the density allowances to see if there's an opportunity to possibly slightly increase the residential density in exchange for some additional wetland areas to be used in calculating those density. But of course, those areas would have to be preserved as a conservation zone. So with that said, what we would like to do is possibly start looking at making some changes to the open space ordinance. Maybe at the next meeting, bring you some ideas, which, like I said, may closely match what we've already developed in the PUD ordinance. But any type of direction or guidance that you guys could give us this evening to see if we're on the right track, to see if you're interested, and to give me some thoughts of things that maybe we need to think about in our deliberation of the actual ordinance text changes.
I want to say that the goal of this is to basically allow the same amount of development, but consolidate it such that you can have more green space, larger green spaces, yet still maintain the number of dwelling units.
That's the overall goal, and maybe to allow a little bit more additional clustering. Currently, the PUD ordinance, the overlay district ordinance has a minimum lot size of 1/4 acre. And it also requires a 10-foot wide building separation, a 20-foot wide building separation between units. It may be that if you can eliminate the lot size, let the developer design the lot size based on the overall theme and character of that particular neighborhood, then you're allowing for additional clustering, you're reducing your impervious area, but you're still preserving, if you so desire, 50% of that site for open space. So we're not really thinking about eliminating the 50% open space requirement, but we are thinking about increasing the allowance for non-tidal wetlands in determining your net yield calculation, and also possibly bumping up the density allowance very slightly if the clustering occurs, if there's a more condensed area of impervious.
Makes sense.
Now, in the PUD ordinance, we have the sliding scale for the use of the non-tidal wetlands, and then for the amount, for every increase of non-tidal wetlands that you're granted to determine lot yield, keep in mind that your allowed yield was less. I don't want to, it's 1 for 1. But I'm not so certain that a 6-unit yield is what we want to achieve in a single-family residential zone. But maybe a more modest yield increase of like maybe 3 units per acre, or 3.5 or 4 units per acre, that may be an achievable goal if you're actually increasing the amount of wetlands that's preserved on the site. It just helps those more challenged parcels that we have remaining in the city, especially those with non-tidal wetlands, to use those non-tidal wetlands to create quality development on the upland areas.
It seems like you're going to have to do that in order to, because, the way there's non-tidal wetlands. It seems like you're going to have to be a little creative, and it sounds like that's what you're trying to do.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're basically trying to get out of the design of ordinances that actually dictate a controlled design. We have a lot of that in our city as it already, very traditional, and there's nothing wrong with that. But keep in mind that the subdivisions that have already been developed are the easier tracks to develop. So what we have now are those neighborhoods or those parcels that are fairly challenged, and primarily not because of utility access, but because of wetlands.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
It just offers a little bit more flexibility. And I really don't think that there would be a lot of changes to the open space ordinance, but it's going to take some creativity, like what we just went through with the PUD ordinance. But I think the PUD ordinance has got some good language in it that we can at least think about incorporating into our single-family residential areas. minus including a mixed-use concept that includes commercial. That's not the goal here.
I think you're asking for our support as if we're up for the task, but you got to do all the work.
Have at it.
Sounds good, go for it.
You're creative. Y'all are
So you'll have it for us next time?
I hope to, yes. I at least hope to have a working document next time, so that,
I was kidding, but
I know,
okay.
well, but you never know.
Ambitious.
Kevin's really ambitious.
Oh,
Sounds good.
There's just such wonderful things, we don't want to get in your way.
yeah. Things we're specifically going to look at: lot size, the wetlands credits, the density, and the open space percentage. In a nutshell, those are the things that we can easily adjust to allow some flexibility. So, and additionally, we're going to look at the sign ordinance. And right now, when it comes to non-conforming signs throughout the city, we're very restrictive. And I've worked with several jurisdictions now, and ours is by far the most restrictive. Usually you fall into this area where, you know, the cost of changing the sign in some fashion comes into play, whether you can change it or not, it's based upon its non-conformity. Here, you can't do anything to that sign, to repair it, to alter it, to change a face of it. You can't do it without removing the sign completely. So we're basically sponsoring an ordinance amendment that would allow signs to be reconstructed to their previous state, providing that they are no more non-conforming than they already are. So that's kind of a minor one-line adjustment, but we will certainly have that ready for y'all to look at next month. I say next month, December. Second.
All right, that sounds good to me. So y'all,
You want to talk about our next meeting, the schedule?
It's just a reminder, and I think I told you in your email that I sent out, that our next meeting, according to bylaws, is December the 2nd, which is a Monday. So please have that on your calendar. And we really appreciate the four of y'all being here this evening.
Yes, we do.
And well done on a collaborative job tonight. It was a tough application.
yes, it was.
It had a lot of different characteristics. It was interesting from a staff level to prepare something. So thank y'all for really, really looking at that thoroughly.
I was hoping that since I had property that I could like opt out, like, you know, I didn't have to participate. You're right, it's, you know, I just, and then, you know, with the scale, that's the stuff I don't like to do, but.
That's all right.
Gus, you have any final words for us tonight?
Oh, man.
You tried.
What's that?
You tried. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't even cross my mind, but then as soon as you said something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
James,
No?
Rich?
I just got to say, because for this particular one we had, Mark is a great guy. I have known Mark since I've been here, and he does a lot for the community. And it's a shame that he and his neighbors can't get along on this particular issue, and I hope they figure out a way to come together and resolve it on their own and take us out of it. But that's it.
Okay, I don't have anything to say with that. Meeting adjourned.